Good morning. Thank you, everyone, for being here so early in the morning, the third day. So my name is Lara. I'm an Android developer, and I'm based in Berlin. My story is a bit different from what you normally think of in tech. I got my first job only 3 years ago, so I still think that I'm fairly new to tech, but I'm still very shocked that we have to talk about why we have to hire juniors. But I'm very happy to see many people today, even though the third day, very early, because I really want to convince you on why you have to hire juniors and how that can benefit you and your team. And I will show you how this can be a reality. And disclaimer, I'm going to be saying juniors and seniors, but because I want to highlight the two extremes, but we all know that there's a wide range in between. All the tips I'm going to give you today will apply to any level. You will see. So let me start with a question so I know who's in my audience today. How many of you have been part of the hiring process at your company and had to look at CVs, do interviews and stuff? Okay, almost everyone. And how many of you, the ones that were part of a hiring process, think that it's easy to find developers? So, no surprises. Everyone knows that finding developers is very hard. I remember that it took me months to find my first job in tech. It was as a quality assurance. I didn't have experience in the field, so it was hard. But I also come from a country where it's very difficult to find a job. So for me, it was normal that it was difficult to get a job. But it was after joining my first mobile team, I remember people were talking about they could not find developers to work with them. They were so hard. That was very, very shocking for me. How can it be that you cannot find people to work? People cannot find the jobs. And I never thought personally that it would be really, truly hard to find developers. And it was going to be so complicated and would take that long. And the reason is that there's a high demand for developers. The market is in favor of the candidates. That also means that sadly the turnover is really high. And turnover means that the frequency in which developers come and leave a company. For example, during my first year in tech, I saw 600 developers come in and leave from my team. And why is it so hard? What do companies want? What do companies want that they cannot find? When it comes to hiring, companies want seniors. And the reason is probably because they can take care of any task, because they bring the experience, because they already have the knowledge, right? Even some big companies made statements like, we don't hire juniors, we only want seniors. And they openly say that. But well, yeah, they can afford that. But seniors are not cheap, and not all companies can afford the same. And besides, bringing juniors to your teams will give you some other benefits that we will see now. So the question is, why don't we hire juniors? I remember that in my previous company, when they were discussing this, about the situation, the hiring situation, a colleague said, why don't we hire a junior, someone that just graduated from university, or that people that are switching careers? And probably the answers I heard, you heard them too. We don't want juniors because they cannot work alone. Because someone has to train them and be there 24/7. We want only seniors. And my question to you is, where do seniors come from? No one is being born a senior. You all have been a junior before, and you all had to look for your first job too. And for juniors, it's not easy either. Some of you probably went to university and studied computer science, and probably you got an internship afterwards. So you got already your first job this way, and let's say it was a clear path for you to follow. Some of you did not have the chance to have an internship and had to look for your first job. But it was still fairly easy, kind of. Probably also, some of you even were not that lucky. And you were switching careers even, and had to fight and fight to find your first job in tech. So everyone here was a junior before, and you all needed the first job. Getting those first jobs, the first opportunity, is hard, but it's doable. Imagine yourself as a junior for a second. You want to get your first job after your studies, and you need to get the first job, and you start searching for opportunities, open positions, without experience. And what you find is that some job positions require lots of frameworks, to know lots of frameworks, and you didn't know all. You don't know all. You probably don't even know what they are yet. And so you don't even meet requirements, right? So you think, how am I gonna apply to this position? And getting the first job as a junior is tough, but it's possible. In this talk, I'm not gonna give details on how to do that, but I want to highlight something else, what it's like to be a junior, and also how you can help them. All right, so after you're looking for a long time for your first job, you got it. You got your first gig, your first job as developer, and you feel happy, but the struggle is not over. It actually just started. Meet the final boss of this professional software development, the imposter syndrome. You, junior, got hired into a team of seniors, and you are the only junior there. They talk about libraries that you have not used yet. They discuss things that you don't understand. And you start to feel like as an imposter. What am I doing here? I don't belong here. Internally, you start to feel fear. You're afraid that someone thinks that you are an imposter. You're scared of working with more experienced people. You are also afraid of asking many questions and bothering your teammates. Afraid of making a mistake that can affect your company. You're afraid. Sometimes you think that everyone thinks that you're not good enough. And I'm sure most of you all have felt at this point, at some point. Some of us still feel like this sometimes. And you know that this is very, very hard. But what you can do is to help. And to help with the situation, you can focus on the positive things. Because juniors and people bring a lot of good things. Let's discuss what juniors can bring to you. Because yes, they bring great things. So juniors will bring, first of all, fresh motivation. I bet that everyone here felt demotivated at some point at work. And demotivation is very contagious, but so is motivation. And juniors will bring this new energy, motivation to your work. and you will feel it. They will also bring fresh knowledge. Juniors probably have time to try out different libraries or components that you seniors did not have time yet to do. And maybe even some bring different knowledge from other areas like web development, iOS development, data science, anything. And that knowledge is also very valuable. Juniors also bring a flexible mindset. Seniors may not be flexible sometimes. After years of working, you get comfortable doing the things the same way and follow the same approach, the same libraries. Perhaps because you want to keep having a stable product, but sometimes you don't have the motivation to learn something new, and that's the truth. Juniors, though, will be very flexible because they want to learn. They want to get there. They are willing to learn a lot. And juniors bring a learning mindset, of course. They want to grow. They want to continuously learn, to be with, like you. And as they want to learn and they have a lot of motivation, they can also be happy to do the simple tasks that you as a senior are tired of doing over and over again. And those are very valuable for them too. But disclaimer, later I will tell you why you should not only give simple tasks to your juniors. But in general, I think it's clear that juniors bring a lot of good things. However, it's not only your teammates who are developers who have to be convinced, but also managers have a set of expectations. So let's see what managers expect from juniors and seniors. So managers expect that juniors are continuously learning, right? And from seniors are also expected to be continuously learning too, because we as developers need to continuously learn, right? We are here to learn together. And not because you're already a senior means that you can stop learning. You need to continue growing as a professional. Managers also expect that juniors will be asking a lot of questions. And what about seniors? Well, seniors are also expected to ask many questions, but also be willing to answer. From juniors, managers expect that they can start taking small tasks. And from seniors, managers expect that they can do almost anything. Then, about processes, a junior is not expected to know everything. They are not expected, for example, to do a release alone. But seniors, yes. Seniors are expected to know everything and to be able to work across teams, you know. But, and finally, juniors are expected to need some kind of guidance. And who is the one who have to provide that guidance? The senior. The senior is the one expected to do that. And by guidance, I mean mentoring, which I will explain later. But as you can see, we have a lot of expectations for juniors and seniors, but they are very similar. There are things that apply to everyone, and things that, it's just that seniors will have more responsibility over the junior. That's all, but they are very, very similar. And you, at this point, you as a senior, probably are thinking, yeah, this is really nice, but what do I gain from helping a junior? Well, you will be guiding someone, and you will show your company that you are able to lead. You can also delegate things. This is going to help a junior to learn more things, to do tasks, different kind of tasks across the project. And you can focus on the tasks that requires your expertise. So it's fine to delegate things. But the most important thing that you are gaining is your career growth. Because part of your role as a senior, you are expected to be able to mentor. And now I'm going to give you some tips on how can you make this a reality. So what is mentoring? Think for a moment what mentoring is for you. For me personally, mentoring is not a teacher-student relationship. For me, the base of mentoring is sharing, and that works both ways. The first key point is knowledge sharing, but how do you actually share your knowledge? Well, you're sharing your knowledge already when you are giving constructive answers on your code reviews. When you talk about how that library didn't work for your project and you're using this other one instead. Or when you share a video of a talk or an article. Also, you are sharing your knowledge when you're discussing about an approach that you think that it could be beneficial for your project. So there are many ways where you can share your knowledge, and most of them, if not all, you are already doing them with your teammates. And by doing so, you can mentor a junior. But to be able to effectively share your knowledge, you also need to have to improve another skill. Communication. Communication is probably one of the hardest skills to master. Think of effective communication. How can you explain a complex concept to a junior developer? Well, there are many things that can help you with that, but let's see an example. So the design, I did it myself, so let's not discuss that. But you here see where it's supposed to be a really simple new screen, which is awesome for your awesome app that you have to build during the sprint. And let's say that the junior wants to do it because, it's a new screen, a new thing, and it's very simple. You have only an image, some text, and a couple of buttons, and those buttons will trigger one API request. There's nothing fancy in this screen. But now, you have an Android project that follows MVVM, repository pattern, and you have use cases. And then you use Dagger for dependency injection and RX. Okay, so probably by now, you see that this screen is not that simple. So how can the juniors start creating this? You have to explain the steps, right? But how can you do that? A way of doing this is to sit together and work together on the feature. But how can you actually make this effective? One thing that really helps is to focus the learning on one simple topic and on something in particular. For example, you can focus on the architecture pattern that your project is following, one thing at a time. And it's okay to say, on this task, we are going to focus only on the architecture pattern. We won't focus on anything else, on other topics. And at the moment that you come across with dependency injection, for example, what you can do is to let the junior copy an example or just guide them step by step, but without explaining the concepts. You don't want to overwhelm them. And it's okay to say, hey, you don't need to understand this at this time. We want you to focus on the architecture pattern and to finish this task. You don't need to know everything on on one at the first time. With every task, you can tackle different topics. This way, you are not gonna overwhelm them, and they will slowly learn with you, but without feeling overwhelmed with everything. Another thing I really recommend is to sketch the ideas. And that means just have pen and paper by hand. Sketch ideas, draw, use your whiteboard. This is going to help everyone to visualize your explanations, and it will make it easier for you too. But not only you and your junior, but anyone listening. So, following the example of our awesome application and new screen, let's try to draw this. And what do we have to explain? So, the first thing is that our screen is making an API request. So we are gonna need to build an API client, our API client. And then probably a service, because we need a way to serve this to anyone. Okay, this is only the data layer, right? Now we also need to explain that we need a domain layer. And then you need to create a repository. And then a use case. But then we also have our presentation layer, which has the layout, the view model, and the view, and the screen, and a navigator. So for that simple screen, following the same patterns we have on our Android project that we saw before, you have to explain that to the junior that they have to build all of this. And this is not very simple. It makes it easier to explain it with drawings, with just writing it on a paper. So, sketch. Another thing that is very important in communication applies to anyone, and not only seniors. Be constructive. When reviewing code, always offer an alternative or an example. Be constructive. Don't ever say, why did you do this? Instead of that, what you can say is, as I understand, you're doing this because of this reason. However, have you considered this other option? Also, instead of just adding comments on a code review, what you can do is to have a conversation offline or in a private channel. This is gonna make it feel closer to your juniors, and it won't feel like a personal attack. Always keep your criticism in private and praise in public. And this also applies to code reviews. Okay, so let's say by now your juniors are learning with you. So which kind of tasks can they do? You will be asking yourself. Well, you have to be aware of their knowledge and also their capacity. Don't make them review and do complex things in the beginning. As they start doing some tasks, you will see what they are capable of. And always challenge their capacities. You also have to give them diverse tasks. You want them to see different parts of the project, right? And well, you also don't want them to get bored. Something very important is to make sure that you have a good environment, and a good environment with good mood and without sexism. Everyone should feel comfortable asking any question. And if seniors ask questions to each other without attacking themselves, juniors will feel more comfortable, and they will ask questions and will do the same as you. And lastly, I know that not everyone is fan of this, but pair programming is also a very great tool that will help your juniors grow. But pair programming is not, you code what I say, but pair programming is a conversation. It's a conversation around a problem. You have to allow the junior take over the keyboard and sit in their space so they feel comfortable. I can say that pair programming will boost the learning. So take the time and sit with them. And now, of course, some tips for juniors too. There are many things that you can do for helping with the situation. For example, when can you ask questions? You have to interrupt your colleagues. It's important to keep that in mind. And don't stop ever yourself from asking questions. I know that not everyone here will feel like, yes, you can bother your teammates, but the thing is that not everyone has the same capacity to move forward. So juniors should be able to ask questions at any time. You will be focusing faster than them on your things. And what if you get stuck? Well, sorry, but this is part of our job. Everyone gets stuck. The difference is that not everyone has the same capacity to move forward. And so what can you do when you get stuck? Well, a thing I do sometimes is time box it. I maybe give myself half a day, couple of hours, 4 hours to research before I ask questions. But the thing that helps the most here always is to take breaks. Sometimes we just get stuck because we simply need a break. And I'm sure everyone here at some point got stuck with something and you were frustrated and you closed your laptop and went somewhere else. And then when you came back, you opened your laptop and you instantly saw what was the mistake, what was the problem. We all need breaks, so don't forget to take breaks, please. Another thing that will help you a lot also when getting stuck is rubber duck debugging. This is a way of debugging where your code where you have, let's say, a rubber duck figurine and you're explaining the problem to it. So when you explain your problem, you can find yourself most of the time the issue. The thing is that I do this a lot, but not with a figurine. I do it with my teammates. Sometimes I am like, hey, Philip, for example, I have a problem and this is what I'm doing. This is what I want to achieve. This is what I'm doing, the steps. And when I'm explaining that, I instantly see the problem by just explaining what I'm doing. Another tip for juniors is for when you're starting your task. If you have no idea on how to start the task, ask for guidance. Yeah, a teammate can help you write down a list of steps that you can follow. But if you have some idea, ask for guidance too. Because, instead of asking your teammate to create the list of steps, you do it yourself. But you also share that list with your teammates, because they can help you spot early mistakes that you were doing on your assumptions before you even start your task. Because you don't know yet all the project, and you don't know all the things you have to consider. This helps when you're new. This helps everyone when you're new, and because you don't know everything, you don't know all the single details you have to consider for everything. Then copy-pasting. Copy-pasting is okay. We all do it. And it's okay to Google things. And it's okay to copy from Stack Overflow. The important thing here is that when you are copy-pasting something, you are understanding what you are doing. What's the problem you have? And what is the solution you're copying doing? A way to copy-paste code and find good examples is within your own project. And this way, you can also learn the patterns that they are following and will help to keep everything consistent too. Now, many times you will feel like, well, you will think, should I know this? I don't really know, and I'm afraid of saying it. I am afraid of asking. Well, you need to tell your colleagues it's okay to not understand everything or not knowing something. And it's difficult to say it. But once you start being open, you will realize of something different, of something. Sometimes your colleagues won't know either. And this is for everyone. If you're open saying, I don't know, other colleagues will feel comfortable and will do the same. And hearing someone saying, hey, I don't know, this will also help you feel less imposter. And by that, everyone wins. We've seen that bringing juniors to your team is perfectly doable. And of course, you need to be ready. But the benefits that they bring to you will compensate it. Are you still not convinced to hire juniors? Remember, you will be helping juniors to progress in their careers. And that is a rewarding experience that you and your team will enjoy. And you will learn, because the best way of master something is to teach it. And you and your senior developers will become better by bringing less experienced people on board and training them. There are no seniors without juniors. And sure, you can pay them, but not every single company can afford that. Juniors will never forget their mentors. When you dedicate some time to help others, they will value that, and they will remember that even if you don't think so. And that can also help you in the future too. Let's say when you are looking for your next job. I'm personally very grateful for many people that are also here today for all the help that I got growing as a developer. Thanks also to droidCon Berlin for having me here today, sharing these ideas with you all. No matter if you're a junior, a senior, or a manager, I hope that you have learned something today and that you can start applying this in your work. Do you have any ideas or any tricks that help you on your career growth? Share them with me on Twitter. Let's continue the conversation, and let's make this a reality. Thank you, everyone.